Olivia Larson sat at her kitchen table, a mug of lukewarm coffee in front of her. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds, casting a warm glow over the room. It was a quiet, ordinary day in the Larson household, until the phone rang. Olivia, the voice on the other end of the line was familiar yet full of urgency. "It's Amanda. We need to talk." Amanda Turner, a longtime friend and, more importantly, a client, sounded distant. Olivia sat up straighter, her curiosity piqued. She hadn't spoken to Amanda in a few months. They used to be close, both women balancing their personal lives with their careers, but lately, they had drifted apart. Olivia wasn't sure why, but there was an uncomfortable distance between them now. "Amanda." Olivia replied, trying to hide her surprise. "What's going on?" I don't know how to say this, but there's something you need to know. Something about Max." Olivia felt a chill creep up her spine at the mention of Amanda's son. Max and Olivia's son, Leo, were in the same grade. They were friends, but lately, Olivia noticed something strange. Max and Leo seemed to be becoming more alike. It wasn't just the way they looked, there was a certain familiarity between them, a bond that went beyond childhood friendship. "Max?" Olivia repeated, her voice now tinged with concern. "What's wrong with him? Is he okay?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, an awkward silence that seemed to stretch longer than it should. "Olivia, this is going to sound insane, but I think Max and Leo, they might be the same person." Olivia felt her heart skip a beat. "What do you mean, the same person?" she asked, trying to process the words Amanda was throwing at her. "I know this sounds crazy, but I've been looking at pictures, and there's something about Max and Leo, something that's uncanny. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm convinced they're more connected than we realize." Olivia stood up, her mind racing. "Amanda, are you telling me what? That Max and Leo?" "I don't know," Amanda cut in, her voice trembling. "But we need to talk. It's something I've been trying to ignore for years, but I can't anymore. There are too many things I've noticed. And Leo, he's got this look in his eyes sometimes. Like he knows something we don't." Olivia felt her stomach tighten. "I'll come over right now," she said, cutting the conversation short. There was no time to waste. Amanda's words had shaken her to the core. What could she possibly mean? Could Leo and Max really be connected in a way that wasn't just friendship? As Olivia grabbed her coat and headed out the door, her thoughts whirled. Was she overthinking things? She had to find out the truth. If there was even the slightest chance that something more sinister had occurred, she needed to know. Olivia arrived at Amanda's house within the hour. The driveway was empty, save for Amanda's car. The air felt heavy, thick with an unspoken tension. Amanda's house was always warm and inviting, but today, it felt sterile. The door opened as soon as Olivia rang the bell. "Olivia," Amanda greeted her with a tight smile. "Come in." Olivia stepped inside, trying to ignore the unease gnawing at her gut. The living room was dim, the curtains drawn, the only light coming from the flickering television. Amanda gestured for Olivia to sit on the couch, but she remained standing. "Tell me what's going on," Olivia asked, her voice shaking. Amanda sighed deeply, as though weighing whether to continue. "I know this sounds insane, but the more I look at Max and Leo, the more I can't shake the feeling that they were switched at birth." Olivia froze. The room seemed to shrink around her. "What do you mean?" "I've been doing research. I've been talking to people. I didn't want to believe it, but there's a chance. A small chance that Max and Leo weren't born the way we thought they were. What if they were switched in the hospital?" Olivia blinked in disbelief. "Are you serious?" "Amanda, that's impossible." "I thought so too," Amanda replied, her voice low and serious. "But I looked at their birth records, and there's something off. Leo, he's always had this same quirk Max does. And those pictures I showed you? They aren't just coincidence." Olivia rubbed her temples, trying to think. It felt like she was hearing a bad joke, But the urgency in Amanda's eyes was real. The resemblance between Max and Leo, it had always been strange. But was it enough to think they might have been switched? "We need to talk to the hospital," Amanda said suddenly, pulling Olivia out of her thoughts. "We need to get to the bottom of this. I've been talking to my lawyer, and I think there's a way to prove it." Olivia's head spun. "A lawyer? Hospital records? DNA tests?" "Amanda, this is insane," she whispered. But something in Amanda's eyes made Olivia pause. There was no mistaking it. Amanda wasn't joking. She was terrified. And Olivia felt that same fear creeping into her chest. What if it were true? "We can't just ignore this," Amanda continued, her voice breaking. "I need to know, Olivia. I need to know the truth." Olivia took a deep breath. She was scared, uncertain, but she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling deep inside. She had to find out, too. "All right. Let's figure this out." But deep down, Olivia knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long, and she didn't know what would happen when the truth came out. Olivia spent the entire night awake, the events of the day replaying in her mind over and over again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Max and Leo, two boys who had always been friends, always so similar yet so different. But now, the questions Amanda had raised couldn't be ignored. Could Max and Leo really have been switched at birth? Could something as unthinkable as this have happened without anyone noticing? The more she thought about it, the more questions flooded her mind. Was this some strange twist of fate? Was it a coincidence that Max and Leo shared so many odd similarities, like the same crooked smile, the same laugh, the way they both chewed their pens when they were nervous? Or was there something more to it? Something no one had ever noticed before? But even more pressing was the question Amanda had posed: what if the truth was buried in the hospital records, waiting to be uncovered? Olivia couldn't sleep, and by morning, her head was pounding with exhaustion. She needed answers, but where could she start? She couldn't just call up the hospital and ask to see birth records without sounding completely crazy. But what other options did she have? She couldn't ignore the way Amanda had looked when she said they needed to find out the truth. The fear in her eyes was palpable. At first light, Olivia called Amanda. "Hey," Olivia said, her voice tight with the tension that had been building all night. "I've been thinking about everything you said. I want to help. Let's go to the hospital together. We can ask for the records, see if there's anything in there." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Amanda's voice responded, quieter than usual. "Are you sure? This is big, Olivia. We're talking about the possibility of messing with people's lives." "I know," Olivia replied, the words tasting heavy on her tongue. "But if there's even a chance that what you're saying is true, we have to find out. We can't just ignore it." "I'll be there soon." Olivia hung up and stared out the window, her thoughts racing. She knew what they were about to do was dangerous. If they uncovered the truth, there would be no going back. There would be consequences, for her, for Amanda, for Max, and even for Leo. But if they didn't try, they'd always wonder. What if they had been given the wrong children? What if the truth had been hidden for years? A part of her wanted to put it all behind her. To tell Amanda that maybe it was a misunderstanding, that they shouldn't take this any further. But deep down, Olivia knew that wasn't an option. She couldn't live with herself if she didn't try to find out what had happened. An hour later, Olivia met Amanda at the hospital. They stood outside the building, the cold autumn air biting at their skin. The hospital loomed over them, its windows dark and imposing. Olivia felt a knot in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. This was something they had to do. "I've been here before," Amanda said, her voice trembling slightly. "But this time, we're not just asking for information. This time, we're looking for something they've been hiding." Olivia nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "Let's just go in and ask. We'll take it one step at a time." They entered the building, and the sterile smell of antiseptic hit Olivia immediately. The lobby was empty, save for a few visitors sitting in the waiting area. The receptionist glanced up as they approached, her eyes narrowing when she saw the serious expressions on their faces. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but distant. "We need to see the birth records for Max Turner and Leo Larson," Amanda said, her voice firm. The receptionist hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she typed. "I'll need your identification, and I'll have to check if we can release that information. Birth records are private, and I'll need approval from the parents before I can give you anything." Olivia's heart sank. They hadn't anticipated this obstacle. Amanda, however, remained calm. "We're aware of the privacy laws, but this is a special case. We have reason to believe there was a mix-up at the hospital, and we need to verify the records to clear this up." The receptionist eyed them both suspiciously but nodded after a moment. "I'll make a few calls, but it could take a while. Please have a seat." They sat down in the sterile waiting area, the minutes ticking by like hours. Olivia couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation bearing down on her. If they couldn't get the records, all of this would have been for nothing. What would they do then? How would they explain this to Leo and Max if they couldn't prove anything? "I don't know if I can do this," Amanda said, breaking the silence. "What if we're wrong? What if we're ruining their lives for no reason?" Olivia turned to her friend, her expression hardening. "If we're wrong, we'll deal with it. But if we're right, if there's even a chance that this is true, we have to know." Amanda looked away, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm scared, Olivia. What if I've been living a lie this whole time?" Olivia reached over and squeezed Amanda's hand. "We'll face this together. No matter what happens." Minutes later, the receptionist returned, holding a clipboard. "I've spoken to the records department, and they've agreed to release the information. But you'll need to sign some paperwork first. Follow me." Amanda and Olivia stood up, their legs stiff from the long wait. They followed the receptionist down a corridor and into a small office. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, and a desk sat in the middle of the room. The receptionist handed Olivia and Amanda the paperwork to sign. As Olivia picked up the pen, her hand trembled. What would they find in these records? Would it confirm Amanda's fears? Or would it prove that they were chasing shadows? They signed the forms, and the receptionist left the room to retrieve the birth records. Olivia and Amanda exchanged a glance, both of them filled with anxiety. "This is it," Amanda whispered. "This is where we find out everything." The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights above their heads. Olivia and Amanda sat across from each other, their nerves on edge. The clipboard with the birth records sat in front of them like a ticking time bomb. Neither of them spoke as they waited for the receptionist to return with the information they desperately needed. Olivia's mind raced with possibilities. What if the records proved Amanda's suspicion true? What if it was all just a mistake, a series of coincidences? Amanda shifted in her seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked pale, her eyes wide with fear. Olivia could see her friend was torn between hope and dread. This was uncharted territory. There was no turning back after they opened this door. Finally, the door to the small office opened, and the receptionist stepped in. She carried a large manila envelope, thick with papers. Olivia's stomach lurched as she looked at it, knowing this was the moment that could change everything. "Here you go," the receptionist said, placing the envelope on the desk between them. "I've cleared everything with the records department. Just be sure to keep this confidential." Olivia nodded, feeling a chill crawl up her spine. She could barely bring herself to touch the envelope, but she knew they had to know. She took a deep breath and opened it slowly, pulling out the birth records one by one. The first few pages were standard: names, dates, parents' information. But as she flipped through, she noticed something strange. The birth dates of the two boys, Max Turner and Leo Larson, were listed as being the same. But the numbers didn't match up entirely. The dates were slightly different, just enough to make her doubt the accuracy of the records. Amanda leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the papers. "What does it say? Is it what we thought?" Olivia swallowed hard, her fingers trembling as she scanned the records. The more she looked, the more she realized that there were inconsistencies. While the names and basic details matched, there were small errors in the documentation, errors that seemed too specific to be just clerical mistakes. "This doesn't make sense," Olivia muttered. "These records. They're wrong. They've been altered." Amanda's heart skipped a beat. "Altered? How?" Olivia ran her finger down the page. "It's hard to explain, but some of the dates don't line up properly. And these signatures, this one doesn't match the one on the adoption papers from the hospital." Amanda's face went pale. "Are you saying someone changed them?" Olivia nodded slowly. "It's possible. But why would they do that? Who would want to hide something like this?" The questions hung heavily in the air, unspoken but pressing. Amanda's hand reached for the papers, but Olivia pulled them away. "We need to be careful with this," she warned, her voice low. "If we're right, someone could be in serious trouble. But if it's true, then Leo isn't my son. Max isn't his brother," Amanda whispered, the horror in her voice almost too much to bear. "I don't even know how to process this." Olivia felt the weight of Amanda's words in her chest. The thought of one of them being in the wrong family, of lives being completely altered by an accident no one had known about, was almost impossible to comprehend. "Maybe it's not as bad as we think," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Maybe these discrepancies are just errors. We can't jump to conclusions until we know more. We need to talk to the hospital, to get more information. Maybe they have more records, or someone there knows what happened." Amanda nodded slowly, but it was clear she was still in shock. I don't know what to do anymore. What if it's true? What if everything changes?" Before Olivia could respond, a voice from the doorway interrupted them. "Is there a problem here?" Both women turned to see a tall man in a dark suit standing in the doorway. He was about their age, with sharp features and a cold, calculating gaze. He stepped into the room without waiting for an invitation, his eyes scanning the desk where the birth records lay. "We need to talk," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the alarm bells going off in her mind. Something about this man seemed off, his presence, his timing, it all felt too convenient. The man didn't speak immediately. He simply looked at the records, then back at the two women. Finally, he crossed his arms over his chest. "I'm Detective Carter," he said flatly. "I was notified about a potential issue here. I assume you two are the ones who requested these records." Amanda swallowed hard, her face paling further. "We're just trying to figure out something. Something about our children." Detective Carter's eyes narrowed. "I see. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you both to come with me. We have some questions about the birth records you've been looking at." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "What's going on? Why are you involved in this?" The detective didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for the records on the desk, his eyes scanning the pages quickly. "This is more complicated than you realize," he said after a pause. "There are things happening here that go far beyond what you two have stumbled upon." Amanda's face turned ashen. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Detective Carter looked at both women, his expression unreadable. "Let's just say, there's more to your children's story than you think. And I'm afraid what you're about to uncover could be dangerous." Before either woman could respond, he turned and motioned for them to follow him. Olivia felt a mix of fear and curiosity swirling inside her. She had no idea what they were about to walk into, but she knew one thing for certain: the truth was closer than ever. The tension in the air was palpable as Olivia and Amanda followed Detective Carter down the sterile hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a harsh glow on the walls, adding to the surreal feeling that gripped both women. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floor as they walked in silence, the unease growing with each step. They were led to a small, windowless room at the end of the hall. The door clicked shut behind them, sealing them in with the detective. He gestured for them to sit at a table, his demeanor calm but serious. "I'm going to be blunt with you," Detective Carter said as he took a seat across from them. The situation you've stumbled upon is far more complicated than you can imagine." Amanda's voice trembled as she spoke, barely able to control her emotions. "What do you mean? What's going on? Why are you so involved?" Detective Carter leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing as he regarded both women. "What you've found in those records is the tip of the iceberg. Those birth records were intentionally altered, and the people behind it were trying to cover up something. Something much bigger than just a mix-up in names." Olivia felt her stomach churn. She couldn't comprehend the weight of his words. Who would do such a thing? And why? The detective sighed deeply, then sat back in his chair. "It's about more than just two boys. It's about a family, a very powerful family, and the lengths they've gone to in order to keep their secrets buried." Amanda's face went pale. "What family? What secrets?" Detective Carter looked at them, his gaze hardening. "The Larson family. Your son, Max, isn't just a random child who was placed in the wrong family. He's connected to them in a way you don't yet understand." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. The Larsons? But Max's father, his real father, wasn't anyone important. He was just a man who worked for the Larsons, Carter interrupted, his tone icy. "His name was Andrew Larson. He was a part of that family, but you were never told that. Max was supposed to be their heir, but things went horribly wrong." Amanda felt her world tilt on its axis. "Max, my son, is related to them? How? That's impossible. How could no one have known about this?" The detective leaned back, his eyes briefly drifting to the ceiling as if searching for the right words. "It's a long story, but it all started years ago when Andrew Larson, the man who would have been the heir to the family fortune, was killed in an accident. His death was ruled a tragedy, nothing more. But what people didn't know was that he had a son, Max. The child, though, was taken away from the Larsons, hidden, and raised by your family. And as for Leo, he was the Larson family's backup. But they thought they could never trust him, so they had him raised with another family entirely, under the assumption that Max would inherit everything." Amanda's breath caught in her throat. "But why would they hide Max? Why go through all of this trouble?" Detective Carter's eyes darkened. "The Larsons are powerful, wealthy. But they're also extremely dangerous. Andrew's death was no accident. It was orchestrated by his own family to prevent him from claiming what he rightfully owned. Max was supposed to inherit that wealth. But someone in that family didn't want that to happen. And they didn't want Max to ever know the truth." Olivia could hardly believe what she was hearing. "But why didn't anyone tell us? Why didn't we know?" Carter sighed. "Because those in power at the time wanted to ensure that Max grew up thinking he was just an ordinary child, disconnected from the Larsons. They used the confusion of the adoption process to wipe out all traces of him. But they underestimated how much truth would eventually come to light." Amanda was barely able to keep up with the revelations. But why is all of this coming to light now? Why did you get involved?" "I've been investigating the Larsons for years," Carter replied. "They're a family steeped in corruption and deceit. And I've been tracking their every move. What you two have uncovered isn't a mistake, it's something that someone went to great lengths to keep hidden." The weight of the words hung in the air as silence stretched between them. Olivia felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her. Max wasn't just her son, he was someone with a birthright to a fortune, a life she could never have imagined for him. And Leo. Leo had been kept hidden for a reason, raised as someone else entirely, with no idea of his true lineage. "I'm afraid things are going to get a lot more complicated from here on out," Carter continued. "You need to be careful. The people involved in this aren't going to let you walk away easily. The Larsons will do everything they can to silence you and protect their secrets." Amanda's face drained of color. "What do we do now? How do we protect our kids? How do we stop them from—" "We go public," Carter interrupted, his voice resolute. "We expose everything. If we can get the truth out there, we'll have a better chance of protecting your sons, and keeping the Larsons from doing anything drastic." Olivia's mind raced. Going public was dangerous. The Larsons would never let that happen without a fight. But there was no turning back now. Too many lives had already been affected by the lies they had uncovered. "We're ready," Olivia said firmly, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "We have to do what's right, no matter the cost." Amanda nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the detective. "What do we do next?" Carter stood up, his expression hardening. "Next, we go to the media. We need to expose the Larsons for what they are. We can't let them control this anymore. But be prepared, they won't back down easily." As they left the room, Olivia couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. The stakes were higher than ever, and they were about to face a battle that would test everything they knew. But she couldn't stop now. The truth was out there, and it was time to bring it to light. The days that followed were a blur of frantic phone calls, meetings, and late-night strategizing. Olivia and Amanda had made the decision to go public with what they had learned, no matter the consequences. Detective Carter had helped them navigate the dangerous waters, advising them on how to approach the media and protect themselves from any retaliation the Larson family might attempt. But despite all the preparation, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered over her. They were about to expose the secrets of one of the wealthiest and most powerful families in the country. And when you go up against a family like the Larsons, you're not just risking your own life, you're risking everything and everyone you care about. "We can do this," Amanda said one morning, as they sat together in the living room of Olivia's apartment. "We have to. For Max, for Leo. For the truth." Olivia nodded, her fingers tightly gripping the mug of coffee in front of her. "I know. But every time I think about what's coming, I feel like I'm about to lose control." The truth was both a burden and a blessing. The revelation that Max was connected to the Larsons was both shocking and deeply painful. She had watched him grow up, imagining him to be an ordinary child, unaware of the immense inheritance that could have been his. But now that they knew the truth, Olivia couldn't look at him the same way. She wondered if this knowledge would change everything for him, for their family, for their future. "I just hope it doesn't tear us apart," Olivia whispered. Amanda placed a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. "It won't. We're in this together. And we have the truth on our side." That evening, they sat in a conference room with Detective Carter, preparing for the press conference that would change everything. Reporters were already gathering outside, eager for any hint of the story that had been teased to them in advance. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to steady her breath. This was the moment. Carter leaned forward, his expression serious as he addressed the group. "You've all seen the statements we've provided. What you're about to hear today will be a game changer. But I need to remind you all, this is bigger than any one family. This is about exposing the truth for the people who have been wronged. And it's about giving Max and Leo the justice they deserve." Olivia stood up, her hands shaking. She wasn't sure how she was going to say it all, but she knew that she had to. This wasn't just for her, or for Max, or even for Leo. It was for all the families who had been hurt by the Larsons' lies and deceit. She had to make sure this truth saw the light of day, no matter the cost. As they stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent, every eye trained on them. Olivia stood at the podium, her gaze sweeping over the crowd of reporters, photographers, and journalists. It was hard to breathe in this space, to know that everything was about to change. "This is Olivia Grant," Detective Carter said into the microphone, his voice steady. "And this is Amanda Lawson. They've come forward to tell a story that will change everything you thought you knew about the Larson family." The room buzzed with anticipation. Olivia took a deep breath before she spoke, her voice trembling at first but growing steadier with each word. "For years, the Larson family has hidden the truth about my son Max," she began, her words carrying through the quiet room. "They've lied about his identity, about who he is, and about his connection to them. Max is not just a random child. He is Andrew Larson's son. He was meant to inherit the Larson fortune, but his father was killed in an accident that was no accident at all. A collective gasp spread through the room, the reporters scribbling furiously in their notebooks as the truth began to unfold before them. The Larsons, Olivia continued, her eyes locking with the camera, did everything in their power to erase Max's existence. They had him hidden away, raised in a different family, and they ensured that no one, least of all Max, would ever know who he truly was. Amanda stepped forward, her voice unwavering now. And they did the same with Leo. They raised him in a separate family, thinking he was the true heir. But they didn't count on the truth coming to light. The Larsons wanted to control everything, including the future of their own bloodline. They wanted to make sure that no one would ever have the chance to claim what was rightfully theirs. The reporters were now furiously taking notes, the magnitude of the revelation settling in. The room buzzed with excitement as the press conference unfolded. Olivia could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she didn't flinch. This was the right thing to do. She had to do it for Max. She had to do it for Leo. She had to do it for everyone who had been hurt by the Larson family's lies. As the questions began, Olivia and Amanda answered with resolve. They spoke about the abuse of power, about the manipulation, about the years of deception. They spoke about Max's inheritance and what it meant for him. And they spoke about Leo, who was still unaware of his true connection to the Larson family. The press conference lasted for hours, and when it was finally over, the reporters flooded out of the room, eager to share the explosive news with the world. Olivia felt a sense of relief, mixed with a deep sadness. There was no going back now. The Larsons would retaliate. They had to. But as Olivia walked out of the building with Amanda by her side, a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. She had done it. They had done it. They had exposed the truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Larsons had underestimated them. They had underestimated Olivia and Amanda's determination to protect their sons and to fight for what was right. And now, the world would know the truth. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. The battle wasn't over, but they had taken the first step. And that was all they needed.